Hello everyone. Back again with film recaps. In this video, I'm going to recap one of the horror thriller films from 2025, titled Dangerous Animals. Before we get to the storyline, I'd like to wish everyone a happy and great day. Without further ado, let's get straight to the storyline. The movie opens as we see a tourist named Greg and his pregnant friend, Heather, on the Gold Coast of Australia. They have arrived at a shark cage attraction called Tucker's Experience, but Tucker, who runs the place, is nowhere to be seen. They instead come across a vendor named Dave, who warns them that a man was recently attacked here by a bull shark. But the duo just laughs at this story until Tucker appears, and greets them with excitement. Tucker learns that the two tourists are from Canada, and asks if they are a couple, but Heather clarifies they're just friends who live in the same hostel. It turns out they were supposed to go to SeaWorld with the group, but the two slept in and missed it. Tucker then jokingly says, in that case, no one knows they're here, which makes Heather feel very uneasy. Regardless, the two board the stranger's boat, and venture out into the open sea. Tucker opens up to the tourists about his childhood, saying how when he was just 7 years old, he was brutally attacked by a shark. It eventually let him go alive, but the savage attack left him with a deep scar across his torso. Shortly after, he throws a bucket full of bait into the water, hoping to attract the sharks. Heather is terrified of these creatures and begins to panic, so Tucker teaches her some relaxation techniques that finally calm her nerves. Afterward, the tourists jump into the water inside the cage, where they see dozens of sharks circling them. Heather is once again frozen in fear, but Greg manages to calm her down by offering his warm hand. And so, Heather finally begins to enjoy the experience, and appreciates the haunting beauty of these creatures. When the duo resurfaces, they excitedly share their amazing experience with Tucker and thank him for the thrill. But then all of a sudden...
Oh man, thanks so much for fitting us in.
Tucker throws the tourist overboard. The next morning, we see an American woman named Zephyr surfing nearby, and having the time of her life. She soon arrives at a store, where a man named Moses is asking the cashier for jumper cables, which are out of stock. Later, Zephyr empties her cold drink in the trash, revealing that she has hidden a stolen ice cream inside. Moses then approaches her and asks if she has jumper cables, but when she denies it, Moses threatens to report her theft to the cashier. He claims that he has walked 10 blocks searching for jumper cables, and needs to get back to his car. With this, Zephyr reluctantly brings him to his car. Along the way, Moses tries to make small talk, but Zephyr gets annoyed and brushes him off. They soon stop in front of a tall building where Moses' car is parked. Zephyr notices a surfboard inside, and helps him jumpstart the vehicle with the cables. As they wait, they bond over their shared passion for surfing, and Zephyr begins to feel attracted to him. Moses also admits that even if she hadn't helped him, he wouldn't have reported her shoplifting to the cashier. That evening, the two of them getting intimate in Zephyr's van right outside Moses' home. The two then chat more about surfing, and eventually fall asleep in the van. Moses wakes up early the next morning and goes inside to prepare breakfast for her. Unfortunately, when he returns, Zephyr is already gone with her van, leaving him very disappointed. Later, we see Zephyr driving to a parking lot of a beach, which is completely empty, except for a lone pickup truck. She decides to surf, but soon realizes her fin key was tossed away by Moses while they were getting intimate. With no other option, she approaches the lone truck, hoping to find something. Just then, the owner of the truck shows up, who turns out to be none other than the damn Tucker. Zephyr asks if he has a fin key, and he hands her one without hesitation. After Tucker drives away, Zephyr receives a text from Moses asking why she left, so she reveals that she has come to surf. But then suddenly, Zephyr soon becomes unconscious, so Tucker puts her into his truck, and stuffs her into a large suitcase. As the sun rises, Tucker returns to his boat, and drags the large suitcase inside a cabin. Elsewhere, Moses arrives at the parking lot of the beach and spots Zephyr's van, but she's nowhere to be found. He dials her phone number, but hears it ringing from inside the van. Back in the boat, Zephyr slowly regains consciousness, only to find herself handcuffed to a bed. Here we learn that Heather is also handcuffed there. Zephyr then screams with all her might, but Heather tells her that it's pointless because no one can hear her. Regardless, Zephyr refuses to stay idle and begins searching for something to pick the lock. But her gaze is soon drawn to the wall, where the name of a previous captive has been scratched into the surface, sending a chill down her spine. The two women then discuss their dire situation and realize that no one is coming to look for them in this place, since they're tourists. Elsewhere, Moses is heading to work when he spots Zephyr's truck being towed, which worries him. He thus immediately rushes to the police station to report her missing. The officer hesitates when he learns Moses has only known her for 11 hours, and isn't sure if she's really missing, but Moses demands they file the report. But when he's asked for Zephyr's last name, Moses is left speechless as he has no idea. Back in the boat, the girls begin talking about their lives, and Heather feels guilty that she didn't listen to her mom, and took a gap year to travel. Zephyr also opens up, and reveals that she's an orphan who grew up with multiple foster parents, and even spent time in juvie. While chatting, she notices the underwire in Heather's bikini, and asks her to pass it over, knowing it could be used to pick the lock. Zephyr manages to remove the wire, right when Tucker shows up with a tray containing water and food. Heather ends up drinking just water, while Zephyr demands that he give her the food, and she also drinks water, after which the psychopath finally leaves them alone. Afterward, Zephyr immediately resumes her task, but she soon begins to sweat, and her vision blurs. She eventually collapses on the floor, and Tucker returns to the room, and calmly takes the wire. It is then revealed that he had sedated their drinks, causing the two women to eventually pass out. Sometime later, Zephyr wakes up, and is shocked to find herself chained to a chair on the deck, while Tucker casually sets up a camera. The psychopath then approaches unconscious Heather, who is equipped with a harness. He uses a knife to cut a strand of her hair before waking her up. Moments later, Tucker flips a switch that lifts Heather a few feet above the water. Zephyr begs him to spare her life, while Heather sobs as multiple sharks are swimming below her. She pleads for her life, but Tucker ignores her and lowers the suspender, until Heather is half submerged in the water. And then this happens. Zephyr lets out a piercing scream while Tucker records every frame with twisted delight. Some time later, Zephyr carves Heather's and her own name into the wall, while Tucker dances and drinks in another room. Here, Zephyr is left stunned when she notices layers of names hidden beneath the paint, revealing there were countless victims before them. Meanwhile, Tucker carefully glues Heather's hair onto a DVD cover, and places it in a cupboard alongside others. He then pulls out an empty tape, and writes Zephyr's name on the label, implying that she'll be his next victim. The next day, Tucker visits Zephyr with food and water, but she angrily kicks the tray over and tells him to stay away from her. He tries to justify his actions, comparing himself to a shark that preys on weaker creatures to bring order to the ecosystem. But Zephyr retorts that sharks are highly evolved creatures, while he's just a coward who kills women because his mother never loved him. However, Tucker doesn't respond to this and, before leaving, he suggests that she use the bucket he provided as a toilet. Afterward, Zephyr, who had been refusing to use the bucket until now, realizes something. She breaks off a jagged piece of the bucket, and transforms it into a crude weapon. Later that night, Tucker returns with a sedative and tries to inject her while she's still sleeping, but Zephyr quickly plunges the sharp shard into him, and the man falls unconscious. Zephyr then grabs his keys and manages to free herself. But before she can leave, Tucker regains consciousness and starts chasing her. He soon catches up and injects her leg with the sedative. After kicking him away, the girl rushes to the control room, where she attempts to radio for help, but without success. She heads to the deck, but Tucker appears again and is about to attack her. Thus, the desperate woman throws his camera into the water, and then throws herself in after it. Unfortunately, the drug's effects quickly take over, causing her to lose consciousness and stop swimming away, so the psycho brings her back to the boat. The next morning, Moses arrives at the beach with several police officers to search for Zephyr. Suddenly, an idea strikes him, and he opens an app called Wave Watch, which streams live camera footage from various spots along the shore. Moses finds the footage of the moment Zephyr went missing, and spots a truck driving away from where her van was parked. He notices a logo that says Tucker Experience, and decides to contact the man. Moses finds Tucker's number on his website and calls, but it goes unanswered. Meanwhile, Tucker is in town, trying to buy a new camera since his old one was destroyed last night. Later, Moses arrives at Tucker's boat to speak to him, but can't find him anywhere. He then suddenly hears Zephyr's muffled screams and realizes something is wrong. Moses quickly breaks a window to get inside, and he follows Zephyr's cries, until he eventually finds her. The shocked man removes the tape from her mouth, and she urgently asks him to find something to pick the lock and calls the cops before the psycho returns. But when he's calling the cops, a fierce struggle breaks out between the two, during which Moses gains the upper hand. He is about to finish Tucker when suddenly, Dave appears out of nowhere and knocks Moses unconscious, thinking he's an intruder. But when Dave hears a woman screaming from downstairs, Tucker slams an axe into his head. Later, we see Moses tied to a bed next to Zephyr, and he apologizes for failing to rescue her. He then asks why she left that morning, and she responds that she's better off alone. But Moses firmly responds that no one is better off alone, and he knows she has been through a lot in life, which is probably why she fled her home. Just then, their conversation is interrupted by the arrival of Tucker, who comes in carrying a harness. A while later, we see that Tucker has put the harness on Moses, and cuts a lock of his hair, preparing him for the kill. Zephyr is seated in a nearby chair, and she begs him not to kill Moses, pointing out that he's not a tourist and is wealthy, so the cops will not give up looking for him. But Tucker ignores her pleas and flips a switch, causing Moses to hover above the water. As Moses begins descending, Zephyr begs Tucker to kill her instead and spare the man, but the psychopath refuses. Soon, Moses' half-body is covered in water and he is surrounded by several sharks, so Zephyr orders him to stay completely still. He obeys, and miraculously, the sharks retreat, bringing relief to both of them. This enrages Tucker so much that he pulls Moses back onto the boat, and stabs him multiple times, leaving him covered in blood. The sharks then quickly return, and this time, staying still won't help. Moses begins to descend, and it seems like it's all over for him. But at the last moment, a chopper is seen flying nearby, and Tucker cannot risk being discovered, so he postpones the murder for now. Later, in the cabin, a bloodied Moses is unconscious, while Zephyr watches him with deep remorse, knowing it was she who led him here. At this moment, she makes a desperate decision, and ends up breaking her thumb, hoping to remove the handcuffs, right before Tucker returns with food. He coldly comments that Moses and Zephyr aren't meant for each other because the guy is too soft and weak. Before leaving, Tucker says he has a feeling tonight's show is going to be one of the greatest yet. Once left alone, a desperate Zephyr tries to free her hand, but it doesn't work even with the broken thumb. She thus goes one step further, and begins to bite her thumb with all her strength while crying in excruciating pain. Sometime later, Tucker returns and is stunned to see Zephyr gone from her bed. Unbeknownst to him, she's been hiding behind the door and quickly locks him inside as she slips away. She rushes to the control room, and tries to start the engines, while Tucker begins to open an emergency hatch. Just as she starts the engines, the psycho manages to break free and cuts the power. With the boat shut down, Zephyr looks out the window and spots a party taking place from a distance. She grabs a flare and tries to light it to get their attention, but Tucker suddenly appears behind her, so she fires the flare at him instead and slams the door shut. She then tries to escape through the skylight, but the psycho breaks through the door, and comes after her again. Zephyr strikes him hard with a pan, and pierces his palm with a knife before lunging away. When Tucker finally recovers, he spots Zephyr a few meters away, sprinting toward the beach. Without wasting a second, he jumps onto a speedboat and rushes after her at full speed. Zephyr swims with all of her strength, her lungs burning and her legs almost giving out. She reaches the shore and screams for help, but before anyone can hear her, Tucker catches up and aggressively covers her mouth before knocking her out. Some time later, Zephyr wakes up hanging by the harness, while Moses is in the chair as a spectator this time. Tucker has his camera ready, and to his delight, one of the most violent and aggressive sharks shows up. Zephyr then begins to descend, while Moses begs the insane guy to stop this. Half her body is submerged in water, but despite the blood dripping from her hand, the sharks do not attack, which surprises Tucker. He doesn't understand what's going on, until he notices that a massive great white shark has arrived, scaring the others away. Tucker then tries to chase it away with a grappling hook, but loses it in the process. Zephyr then climbs up the harness using the hook, but she ends up falling again. The impact releases her from the harness. Soon after, Zephyr suddenly comes face to face with the massive shark from earlier. She fears that this is the end, but the shark unexpectedly ignores her, and swims away. Meanwhile, Tucker searches the water for her, unaware that Zephyr is climbing up the back of the boat with determination. Up next, she does this.
Ooby-dooby, motherfucker.
The cowardly man tries to climb back up, but it's too late, as the massive white shark suddenly appears and continues the job, and brutally tearing his body apart, all of which is being recorded on his own camera. The shark then drags Tucker underwater, but the harpoon rope gets caught around Zephyr's ankle, yanking her violently into the water. Moses screams in horror, and the shock causes him to lose consciousness. However, Zephyr, who's a fighter, manages to resurface and finds her way back to the boat. In the final scene, Zephyr sets off a flare, catching the attention of a nearby boat that quickly approaches to help. She tries to wake Moses, but he's in critical condition and unconscious. Zephyr then tearfully admits that she once believed there was nothing for her on land, but now things have changed because she has him. Hearing this, Moses finally opens his eyes and they exchange a smile filled with hope and unspoken promise as the movie comes to an end. Okay guys, thanks for watching. See you again in the next video.